Hey guys, Texas Garden Guy here. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be potting up another mega adenium that we're going to be adding to the collection. I picked this one up about 2 weeks ago. This might actually be bigger than my other. This is my biggest adenium now. The one I had before when I did the monster adenium video was 3 smaller adeniums in one. This is one individual big adenium obesum. You can tell this is grown from seed. It is not grafted. There are no grafting lines. This is just a big boy right here. But we're gonna get it out of the pot and get it in a new pot looking good with some awesome soils. So let me show you what we're gonna be working with today, the materials we're gonna be using. Obviously, you can use this for any size adenium. Mine is obviously a little bit bigger. It is currently in black soil with perlite and stuff like that, which is okay. You can grow desert roses like this in black soil. I tend to use a chunkier soil like a bonsai gritty mix or a succulent gritty mix. These are going to look very rocky. Anytime you use like a bonsai soil, it's going to look like gravel almost, but it's got stuff like pumice, calcined clay, perlite, pine bark, even leeka balls sometimes. So you'll see a little bit of mixture in these bonsai or succulent gritty mixes, and what that allows for is really good drainage, because a lot of the times when you have a desert rose in one of these pots in this type of soil, they have a tendency to get root rot because that soil holds too much moisture. So you want really good drainage. We're also going to be using a pot. I typically put all of my desert roses in terracotta or ceramic, just because I like a big heavy base, and I typically like a shallow pot as well. This is, I believe, a 10-inch or a 12-inch maybe that I picked up at a nursery around here. But I typically go with ceramic pots for my desert roses. We've got a bin, so that when we take this out, this is optional, I guess, to catch some of the soil so it doesn't get all over my driveway. For the bottom of the pot, we're going to be using, I forget what this is called. It's called, like, it's just a mesh. And what this does is you put it on the hole, and it keeps all the mixture from coming out the bottom. So I'm going to show you how to do that. That's pretty much a bonsai technique they use. Yeah.
Mesh.
Oh, the mesh. Yeah. You can get a whole sheet of this. You can buy the individual like pre-cut circles, or you can buy an entire sheet, like a 20 pack for like 20 bucks, and it lasts a really long time. We've got some pruners. These are bonsai pruners, some snips. I like the stainless steel or surgical steel blades. And then I also have a metal chopstick for kind of getting into tight spots. I got a brush for getting some dust away without having to, like, get too rough against the Codex. And I got a pair of scissors and some bonsai wire. So let's get started by taking this out of the pot. And you can also see I've got a Lazy Susan here. I bought this on Amazon, this Lazy Susan. It's been out in the rain. It's held up really nicely, actually. These are typically for cake decorators, but it helps when you're doing bonsai or whatever. So let's get this repotted. Unlike the first one we did on the channel, this one doesn't seem like it's filling up the entire pot. I literally had to cut the entire pot in half to get the other one out. But let's see what we can do here. So I'm going to try not to damage the Codex, but turn this sideways. Try to catch most of this soil in my pot. Let's see. Here we go. Wow. Okay, this is bigger than I thought it was going to be. Oh my God. Holy cow. That's a lot more soil than I was expecting. Or that's a lot more root growth than I was expecting. See if we can get this kind of up. And wow, a lot of peat moss in there. I'm tossing this back into the pot now. Making a mess. That's why I like to do this on the concrete or on the grass. If it's on the concrete, I can just blow it off afterwards. If it's in the grass, it just kind of stays there. It's fine. We're going to kind of knock off some of the soil. I keep this little chopstick, try to anyway, to knock off some of the soil. Maybe don't poke at it. Just kind of break some of that soil off so we can get exposed more of this Codex. I really like the shape of this desert rose. You see it's got like 3 little humps there. Let's see what we got. Let me come in here a little closer. Just gonna break it up, trying to make a mess. And see, I don't buy the desert roses for what they look like on top. You can see this is kind of a basic color. This is a very common color, desert rose. I don't typically buy them for their colors unless they're just something really exotic. What I usually buy is for what's down below. These things are like icebergs. The top is just a little bit of what's going on. The real business is downstairs. Sounds weird. It sounded really bad. Oh, here we go. Wow, look at that. It's already exposing. You see, we've gone down about an inch or so, and this has got a lot going on. So I can turn it. And then as I'm going, I'm making sure I don't see any rot. You will see some wet looking like black spots on the base of the caudex. If it's got a little bit of rot, you also feel it being really soft and kind of mushy. If it's got root rot, let's see, this looks really healthy though. I bought this at Martha's Bloomers, but for the most part, pretty much everybody in the Houston area gets their desert roses from Fred Reyes over in Simonton, Texas. And I know for a fact, because of the color of the pot, that's where this came from. So shout out to Rachel and Freddie. This is an awesome desert rose. Oh wow, look at all this. And yes, this is in the middle of summer. It is middle of July, or this is the beginning of August. But
I came on that side to see.
Oh, to see this part? Yeah, it's the beginning of August, and this is an okay time to do this. These are very tropical plants. You want to be repotting when they are growing, when they're super active, and they are growing like crazy right now. I would normally prune off quite a bit of this, but this being a very mature desert rose, I don't want to go pruning anything off because there's a good chance I'll get seed pods. And because I've got like 30 other desert roses that are blooming as well, I'm hoping to get some cross-pollination and get some new varieties. So I won't be doing any pruning up top till probably late fall. But usually desert roses, it could take anywhere between 3 and 7 years before they actually start putting off seed pods. So this is a big mature daddy right here. This is a big one. This is easily my biggest desert rose now. And look at that. So what's cool about desert roses is you can actually, like if I were to make a cut, like a thick heavy cut on this, like across the main trunk, you could just take this and sit it off to the side and let it scab over for weeks. I mean, you can leave them alone by themselves for a long time, like just let them scab over and then eventually put them in soil. When they ship a lot of these from like Thailand or Asia, they usually ship them like this. They'll ship them like this wrapped in newspaper, and they'll be on a barge or a ship for like weeks, maybe months. And then you stick them in soil and they start growing. It's so crazy. But kind of going gentle. I don't want to make too many major cuts. If I were, like I said, to go make a major cut, like take some of this big stuff out, you could still plant it today without letting it scab over. You just wouldn't want to water it. So we're kind of in good shape because for like the next week or so, it's not supposed to rain. So if I do make any incisions, I shouldn't have to worry about it. I like the brush method better than the chopstick method this time. It's not as aggressive going against the caudex. But yeah, this is by far my biggest individual one now. This is crazy. We're building up our stock because we want to get a bunch of seeds. I've already been starting these from seeds from the other big one that's been providing seed pods to me. So this will be hopefully the second one I have starts putting out seeds. Let's get this cleaned up and we'll take a look at it. All right, so a lot of times I will put a bucket or something a little bit higher up and then put the Lazy Susan in the pot on top. That way, whenever I'm trimming the roots on the desert rose, I can kind of get a better look to see what's going to be above the soil or not. And it looks like this is about as much as we're gonna have above, and it's gonna be pretty high up there. So I kind of got my eye line. So pretty much anything above the old water line, I guess you would call it, we're gonna go ahead and trim off. I think we're gonna leave pretty much all those roots down below. So we'll go ahead and get to pruning. So I'm just gonna go ahead and prune some of these smaller little hair roots. They're up top because they're not gonna be touching soil. So I'm gonna go ahead and take those out, get as close to the caudex as you can, snip them off. And because these won't be underground, you don't have to worry about these, you know, really scabbing over. We're still not going to water this for probably about a week after we replant it anyway. That should be enough time to let it completely scab over so that it doesn't allow, you know, too much moisture to get in there and start causing, you know, root rot or some kind of mildew or any kind of disease. You can also use stuff like cinnamon. I have in the past used cinnamon before. I don't use it so much anymore, but you definitely can. There's a lot of people that do. We'll take this big one out. See how big this one is? Take that one out. Some people use razor blades. Some people use like kitchen knives or pruning knives to do this. I prefer these little snips. Everybody does it different. This is just how I do it. We're gonna take this little nub out right here. I'm gonna take that little guy. And you can be pretty. You can go pretty prune happy on these, and they're very forgiving, honestly. You just want to, I'm going to keep these guys out too. These little tiny ones. They're very forgiving plants as long as you allow them enough time to scab over before you start introducing moisture back into it. So like normally I would take and start pruning these all off. So if I were to prune up here, and yeah, I would prune like here going over, and everywhere you prune, it's going to fork off. Instead of having all these straight limbs going up, it would fork out and make 2 to 4 to 5 new limbs coming off there. But because, like I said, I want to see if this one's going to put out seed pods later in the fall, we're just going to leave it alone for now and go with that. So let's get our pot ready, and then we will get this thing situated. I will say this also, if you are handling a desert rose the first time, the sap can be toxic if you get it like in a cut or get it in your mouth or swallow it or get it in your eyes. So if you're not familiar with this plant, if you're not familiar with any plant, always wear gloves, but especially with desert roses, make sure that you're wearing gloves. I do this a lot. I don't touch my eyes anymore. I'm okay, but you should probably wear gloves and something to cover your eyes in case. So we're gonna take some of this sheeting, and we can see our hole is about 1 inch wide. I'll probably go twice as wide. I'll just make a little square. And this does not have to be fancy at all. I know some people that will just do the entire bottom in this. I don't. So we'll have it like right here, and then we're gonna take some bonsai wire. Get out here, mosquito. God, mosquitoes and flies is always something. We're taking this bonsai wire here. I don't know what gauge this is, but we'll take us about a 4-inch strip. Cut it. All right, so we've got a little piece of mesh right here. We got a piece of wire. We're going to place it through the holes in the middle of our mesh, just like so. And then we're going to go to the drainage hole of the pot, right? Flip it upside down, and then we're going to spread that out, just like that. And then I like to make a little curve. And now, whenever you put soil in here, the mesh is going to hold, it's going to cover the hole so it doesn't allow so much of your soil to come out. We're going to be using, we've got Soul Soils, this is the Bonsai Gritty Mix. You see the mixture, real gritty. What has this got in it? It's got calcined clay, granite, pumice, expanded clay, and pine bark. And then this is the Succulent Gritty Mix. And it has calcined clay, perlite, pumice, granite, expanded clay, coconut husks, and pine bark. So it's got a little bit of everything. We're gonna go ahead and mix this stuff in. We'll use this right here. Mix all this stuff up. I would usually only use the bonsai mix, but I won't have enough if I do that. So we're going to mix some of this succulent gritty mix. And you can use whatever soil you like. I tend to use a grittier mix because I want that drainage. I want that really good drainage, and I don't want any of the soil to be holding too much moisture and allowing root rot. So when you get this mixed up, you can see how good of a mix that is. A lot of people will be like, what is he doing? This is good stuff. This is what I do all my desert roses in. All right, so we got our scoop. We're going to kind of do a base layer at the bottom. I do a thin layer. All right, and then I'm actually going to bring that birdseed container back up top so I can get an eye level of how it's going. All right, and then from here, we're going to take our desert rose. Boom, just like that. It's okay if it's still got a little bit of black soil in there. It's not a big deal. Got our chopstick as well. And so we're just going to kind of fill in the gaps. And having that little lazy Susan is going to be super helpful. Just kind of dump it in. Just to get it kind of situated first. Kind of turn it. Just want to kind of keep that desert rose centered. So kind of got the first bit in there. We're going to take our chopstick, kind of just poke around in there. You're not going to go, we're not going towards the actual desert rose. We're just kind of going down and twerking it a little bit, you know, get down there and twerk your chopstick in there. And what we're trying to do is tamp, you know, get those air pockets filled in with the soil. See how the soil is sinking as I go? It's filling in those pockets. As you go, there's going to be air pockets. And where those air pockets, when you water, those are going to turn into pockets of moisture that are going to sit there and rot your roots. So you want to definitely get in there with your chopstick or something and get those air pockets filled in with soil. And plus, it'll help hold your plant up better too as well. It'll be nicely packed in tight. So we'll just keep going. Just be very careful. You don't want to go jabbing into your desert rose, obviously. That goes without saying. Forget shoe fly. And you see how much is already sunk down. I love this stuff, Soul Soils. It is so nice. I have not had a single problem with any succulent or desert rose or anything like that I've used my Soul Soils on, because it drains so well. That's the 90% of the time when people have had problems growing desert rose is because they don't have good enough drainage. They go get a bag of Miracle Grow off the shelf, and a month later it's dead. You hear the cicadas in the background. There we go. We're going to top it off with the rest of it. I think I had just enough. I really love these pots. I don't typically go with a super fancy looking pot because the flowers are so beautiful. I don't want to take away too much focus away from the actual flower. So I typically just go with the regular terracotta pot, honestly. Sorry. Get the rest of this out of here. Making a mess as always. Like I said, there's all kinds of soils out there. Whichever one you prefer, or whichever one someone teaches you how to do, that's fine. I'm just showing you how I do it. And so if you want to try my methods, I have a a link for soil soils down below, and you can get some soil soils. Let's see. We're just going to kind of work it. Work it, work it, work it. Work it down. This is probably the most time-consuming part of the process, is just getting that soil packed in nice and tight so that the root's going to be nice and secure and you're not going to have that moisture hanging around. And like I said, I use bonsai soil. I wouldn't consider myself a bonsai artist. I don't typically shape my bonsai or my desert roses in the bonsai fashion. I love the method of planting it in a bonsai style, just because that good drainage is allowed, and you see the fat caudex. Like, look at this fat caudex. If you don't know what a caudex is, this is the trunk of this desert rose, and it's like a camel. That's where it holds all of its moisture. So over time, this thing's going to swell, and about once a year or so, cicadas are loud. About once a year or so, we'll go ahead and lift. We'll lift it up. We'll lift it up about an inch or so every year to expose more and more and more of that fat, juicy caudex. You know, this is just a beautiful one. But, you know, by the time y'all see this next on the next follow-up video, I will have probably cut this whole thing off, and I've even had pretty good success propagating the cuttings from these desert roses. One thing you do need to know when you're propagating a desert rose, one that grows from a cutting is never going to get this fat caudex. It's never going to get a fat caudex. The only things you would do with a cutting from a desert rose, you would either graft it on to another desert rose, and you can propagate them, but they will always be tall and skinny. They will flower really quick, but they will never get the fat caudex. Like
in your next video. Tell them in your next video.
Yeah. I did some propagations in the spring. You definitely, I found this out the hard way. You definitely want to propagate in the growing season during spring, summer, and fall. Don't try it over winter under heat lamps in the garage. It does not work. I had no success. But I did have success this spring doing it, and they were pretty much left out in the heat, and they did amazing. I got a bunch of them, but they're all tall and skinny. So, but yeah, check this out. I mean, this turned out really, really nice. I might even, I might style this a little bit once we do a little bit of pruning, but like you can see how much growth is on here. And I can't wait to get this like where it's a full bush. Some of the ones I've done in the past that I started pruning on, they get super bushy and you get more blooms down below. When they, if they spend all their energy growing straight up, they are going to put out some blooms, but not as many as you get when you kind of prune them and keep them more bushy. So hope you all enjoyed this video. And if you have any questions, drop it down below, and we'll see you on the next one.